Yeah, I've been waiting for this.
More catch up, everyone. Press any button here, by the way. So we're just going to speed through everything. Don't want to make this a long part. Doesn't really make any sense. So we're going to first make parameters for our character in the animator. So you're going to click on your character. You're going to go to the animator that's assigned to that character. And we're going to make some parameters that align with the player movement script that we've moved from our other project. So the player movement script is just like this. If you've been using it as I've been using it, then you won't have to make any changes on your parameters. But just to get a sort of reference where you can see my mouse is, that's going to be where you're going to get those references for your parameters from. So we've got 2 floats and 1 boolean. So you add a float with the plus icon here, you name it speed in the exact same way that you've done in there. And then you've got a v-speed one and a ground one. Now the ground one works in relation to our ground check, so that's going to be the next thing that we do, otherwise we're going to have some problems. So if I look at my character in the scene here, you're going to see that they have a couple of things assigned to them, and one of those things is called grounded. It's not popping up right now, but of course it wouldn't. But anyway, I've got an empty game object just located around their feet here. I will assign it some kind of tag so you can see it there, and that empty game object is of course the ground check. So you're going to want to make that your ground check, and then we'll go back to the script that contains the player movement, and you're going to take that ground check and put it into the ground check area, and then we'll have a ground identifier. Now to make it so that we can identify the ground, we're going to need to do some stuff on that grid. So just like we did before, you're going to go to your main ground on your grid. So this is with the tiles that we've been using, and you're going to make the layer main ground or something that is just sort of relevant, because you're going to pick it from this drop down here. It'll come up with all the layers. So if you wanted to put it on like water or something like that, I mean you can. I won't recommend it. Just make a new one. And of course we make a new layer by just going to add layer and then typing what you need to. From there we're gonna need to get these animations working. So just as we did before, really guys, you can skip this part if you've got the other project set up, but we've got our entry, we've got our idle main, we've got our run animation, and these are the conditions. So right click, make transition, left click, and you'll get the transition attached to your running animation. And we're going to go off of speed here. So if the speed is greater than 0.5, then we're going to go into that running animation, and that's just under the conditions. You hit the plus icon there and you'll get that. And then we've got a less than 0.5 here. So if we're traveling at less than 0.5 units of speed, then we're going to go back to our idle main. Now there's something else that I did off screen that we've done on screen before, and you guys should be adept with animations at this point. So I made 3 jump animations. I'm just going to cycle through them real quick. Let's look at the game view for it. So I've got a she's sort of going up into the air animation, and then I've got sort of coming to the peak of the jump, and then I've got a falling animation there. And of course we're going to use a blend tree again, so we'll go to the animator, and then you're going to right click, create state from new blend tree, and then when you have your blend tree there, you're going to go from any state and add the condition that if ground is false, then we're going to go into this blend tree, and if ground is true, then we're going to go into our idle main, which just allows us to go into other animations that we have here. Now what's going to go in the blend tree? Well, that's going to be our jump animations. To add those animations, you're going to double click on this blend tree. So left click, double double tap that, and then you're going to right click here, add motion, and it'll give you the option to add a new motion. So you can see in the inspector for the blend tree, I have the option to do that. So I can add some new animations. I don't remember Boris animation or Boris move, but okay. And then once you've done that, you should be good to go. But what I'm going to do is just Control C, because I don't need that extra motion. Now with our animations, I've started, so the jumps are done in ascending order. So we begin with jump 1, 2, 3. Obviously we start the jump going up, peak, and then come down. And then we're going to have automatic thresholds, and it's going to be messed up to start off with because it's not going to know what speed you want to use for these thresholds. So under the parameter, the V speed, we're going to want the range of that V speed that's being measured to be -12 and 5. So it's going to work with values from 5. We're going to go into that first initial going up animation, -3, we're going to peak off, and then -12 is when we just fall. And the final thing that you'll want to do is go over to your previous project and get the smooth camera so that we can have the camera track. It just makes it easier as we develop the game, of course, and obviously we need to just get everything back in here. So to do that, this is obviously the file that I'm already using. But to do that, you're going to right click and then just hit copy, go over to the assets for your current project. So here I'm in Run and Gun, but if I wanted to go to some other project, RNG, then I would go into my assets and then I go into scripts and I would just paste that. But I've done the exact opposite route. I've taken it from RNG and put it into Run and Gun, and we don't have to copy the metadata. Unity will just create that for us. Once you have that in there, we'll assign it to the main camera. So you just go add component, script, find smooth camera, and then we're going to drag the player game object into where it says target, and you should have a good tracking camera. Final things for the player, we're going to go back to the rigid body and we're going to change that gravity scale because our jumps are still a little bit floaty, and changing the scale our character has done as much as it can. So the gravity scale is going to be about 4.5, and then we'll have the jump force at something over 700 because 700 is not really sufficient, and the max speed for the run is pretty good. So we can test this out. I can show you that this is what it should look like once you've got your stuff sorted. There we are. That's a happy little character. So yep, they're running, and I spoke previously about sort of floaty movement with their run. That's really just because we're using this composite collider on our ground tiles. So when we have lumpy tiles like we do for our grass here, as you can see if I put that in the scene, so yeah, lumpy tile, obviously we're just going to collide with that as if it were lumpy. So my advice would be to make it less lumpy when you're developing your game. Final note from me, if you're having a little bit of trouble with the animations not ending when they're meant to, make sure that you have has exit time unchecked on all of your transitions. But also where it has this little timeline, make sure that if there is an overlap, that you correct that. Now some animations, that's completely fine, but from going from my blend to idle main, I believe it was set up a little differently before, and that caused my character to remain in the jumping animation after they had landed, which wasn't the best thing, just looked really janky. But as you can see now, that's fixed. So I've just pulled that over to demonstrate what you might be seeing if you have something like that, and this is the initial problem I was coming up against. So we're just gonna get rid of that blend there, just manipulate the timeline, and you know, just get a feel for it. I made this, I guess it's a transition. I made that pretty much non-existent, and then we get a nice snappy land. Right, that's it. Press any button. Signing out. Press on. Keep creating. See you in the next part.